Today, we're going to be looking at a story in Jesus' life that's a little bit of a classic. It's a story that sets a precedent for Jesus' life coming over the next 3 years. And it can be found in John chapter 2, the story of Jesus turning water into wine. So if you haven't already, pause this video and open your Bible to John chapter 2 and read verses 1 to 11. Should only take you a few minutes, then come back to this video and carry on. So, if you've been around Sunday school for any period of time in your life, you're likely to have heard this story before. It is a bit of a Sunday school classic, I'll be honest. And you might be thinking, well, what's so amazing about that story? Jesus did lots of amazing things in his life, some things much more amazing than what we're looking at here today. And that's true, except I would challenge you and say, actually, this story is funny, intriguing, and amazing all at the same time. And there's a really incredible lesson to be learned in reading about it. So let's set the scene. There's a wedding going on in Cana, and Jesus' mother has been invited. Also, Jesus and his disciples have managed to get an invitation too. But there's a problem. Jesus' mother comes up to Jesus and says, they've run out of wine.
Just as a side note, Jewish wedding celebrations in Jesus' day ran from anywhere from 4 to 7 days. So running out of food or drink halfway through could be awkward if you're the host. In fact, it was considered publicly embarrassing.
So back to the story. Jesus' mother is talking to Jesus and she says they've run out of wine. So she comes and tries to drag her son into helping. Jesus says, well, it's not my time to do it. But that doesn't seem to stop his mother from telling the servants to do exactly what he says. So Jesus apparently relents and tells the servants to fill up these 6 massive jars with water. And they do. They fill them up to the brim, and you probably know the rest of the story. They're told to take a sample of this to the host, and the host tastes it, this water that has now been turned into wine, and proclaims to the groom, "Why have you saved the best wine until now?"
Now, I know that was a quick summary of a fairly well-known story, but I want to bring to your attention just a few things that stood out to me. Firstly, why was it the custom to bring out fine wine at the start and then the cheaper stuff afterwards? I mean, to me, it sounds like they bring the cheap booze out later when people, were frankly a bit drunk and couldn't really taste the difference. Secondly, why did Jesus' mother carry on and tell the servants to do what Jesus said after Jesus had already said, this isn't the time for me to do anything? It seems a pretty bold move to me, and she clearly has a lot of faith in Jesus' ability and willingness to help her. It seems to pay off in the end. And finally, why was Jesus' chosen act to turn a load of water into a load of wine? As far as I can tell, he made enough wine to fill about 80 bottles. That's a lot to keep a party going. It seems to me that this Jesus is not the safe, sanitized Jesus that I grew up with. This Jesus is a different Jesus altogether. The Jesus I grew up with was always polite, clean, and well-spoken, always did as he was told by his parents, always tidied up his room and never spoke back. He never approved of parties, would not have associated with drunkenness. He always said his prayers and read his Bible. When he was a baby, he never cried, never caused a fuss, never sicked up milk on Mary and Joseph, never needed his nappy changing.
He did miracles of healing people and useful things like that. In short, the Jesus I grew up with was safe and predictable. You could put him in a metaphorical box and you could always know where you stood. But to be honest, that Jesus was always a little bit boring and quite a lot disapproving. But the Jesus we see in this story is someone else. This Jesus hangs out at parties where apparently all the wine was drunk within the first few days. This Jesus pulls spiritual favours for his mother and the bride and groom, so they aren't publicly embarrassed. This Jesus turns approximately 1,000 litres of water into the finest wine. That's enough to fill 80 wine bottles by today's standards, and certainly enough to keep a party going for a while. And it doesn't stop here. As his story unfolds in the Bible, Jesus does some amazing, insulting, and extravagant things for those around him. This Jesus hangs out with sinners, cheaters, swindlers, and prostitutes. This Jesus goes to parties and is called a glutton and a drunk by the religious elite. This Jesus curses and insults the religious leaders of the day through stories and directly to their faces. This Jesus allows a prostitute to wash his feet with her tears and hair, whilst in a Pharisee's house. This Jesus got annoyed and frustrated with his own disciples. This Jesus took off most of his clothes, got down on his hands and knees, and cleaned his disciples' dirty, smelly, poo-covered feet. This Jesus called himself the Son of God, spent whole nights alone with God, walked on water, and slept in a boat while a storm raged. This Jesus died on a cross, and 3 days later rose from the dead, saying he had conquered sin and death.
I don't know about you, but this Jesus seems a lot more exciting and intimidating to follow. But one thing he certainly isn't. He certainly isn't boring. I know who I'd rather follow. Maybe today you want to ask yourself this question. Would the real Jesus please step forward? Imitators, you can go home.